If you're gonna tell a story, come with some attitude, man.
Miles Davis. My name's Dave Braden, Rolling Stone magazine.
I'm here to do your comeback story.
Okay, move back a little bit.
Yeah.
Did you know much about Miles Davis before you came aboard this movie?
I knew a bit about him, I suppose. There's so many iconic images of him.
Yeah.
And I'm familiar with a lot of those photographs of him. I knew that he would play with his back to the audience. That's one of the things I knew about him. And I was familiar with some of his music, Kind of Blue, Sketches of Spain, and then the last two albums he made, I was familiar with. It must have been like mid-'80s, I guess. I don't know why I'm really familiar with a couple of those albums.
What was it like playing a fictional character opposite a real-life character?
Well, that's the game that Don's playing with this movie all along the way. There's lots of factual reality in there. There's things that really happened to Miles, and there's things that are completely invented. And
you are one of the
inventions. And I'm one of those things, yeah. And his genius, I suppose, Don, was that's how he decided to make this film about Miles Davis, as opposed to making a sort of traditional biopic where we follow, the historical facts of his life. He's sort of cast Miles Davis as the leading role of a movie that he thinks Miles Davis might have liked to have been in, I think that really works, and it works especially because of who we're talking about, Miles Davis. It's sort of jazz in a way. It feels right, and the movie almost feels like a piece of his music,
Now, you were being directed by Miles or directed by Don? Because I hear that Don kind of stays in character.
Both. I mean, both. Early on, when you're in the first few weeks of shooting, everyone's really there's very little rehearsal for a movie. So during those early weeks, you're still all finding your character. So during those earlier weeks, I seem to think Don would be in character between takes. So it was like working with Miles Davis. So I was directed by Miles Davis, which sometimes is tough because he's a tough character, And then I feel like towards the end or later on in the shoot, that would happen less. And Don, also we had very little time and very little money. And in those moments, it's just quicker to express what you want without having to be playing Miles Davis at the same time. So I think in those moments, sometimes Don would just be Don,
How did you prepare for this role?
Speaking with Frances Taylor, she and I had lunch and, shared a lot of conversations and little stories that she had. So that was the main part of my research.
Did you feel any pressure?
Yes, you do feel a certain amount of pressure because, you want to honor this woman. This is her life that you're portraying, so you want to honor her, you want to please her, but at the same time, you know that you can't please in everything, you can't reach for that. And so you just hope that the two would collide and that she would be pleased and that the work would be satisfied as well. And so that's what you hope for. And in this case, that was, what happened. Thankfully, she afterwards, let me know that she was pleased with it.
Do you have a favorite scene or a favorite day of shooting that will always stick out for you when you look back on this film?
Yeah, it was the scene in the club where everyone is cleared out and he's playing just to her. It was just a special moment for me, just in character and as Emayatzi, a fan of Don Cheadle, and watching him up there on that stage, playing the trumpet to me, just as a fan, which is really beautiful. And then in character, because Francis would tell me that that's something he would do often, is after a set, he would just play to her. And I thought there was something so beautiful about that, so romantic. And so that was really just one of my favorite moments.
So this movie is part fact, part fiction. So it's like a biopic meets a buddy action flick. What was the reasoning behind you choosing this particular way of telling the story?
Well, because I wanted something that was creative, that felt like a piece of music that was constructed in the way that Miles approached his creativity. And I think the narrative, the way that the framing device with this interview gave us the ability to use all different genres of Miles Davis music and let it all be the soundtrack of this portion of his life.
You wear so many hats on this film. You star as Miles, you directed it, you produced it, you were involved in the screenplay. There's even a composition by credit for you. What was that one about?
I got my compro directorate on this movie. So,
What does that mean? Sounds
composer, producer, director, actor, writer.
There we go.
Yeah, my compro directorate.
So where did your music come in?
Robert Glasper, who composed this, he and I, the last piece, I co-produced the very last piece with the Pharoah Monch rap, and the last piece of the musicians that you see with, you know, Esperanza and Gary Clark Jr. and Herbie and Wayne, and so I co-wrote that song as well. And a lot of the cues in the movie I wrote.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Y'all, let's be musical about this. Be wrong, strong, okay? Otherwise, live out.